Hey, this is Terri Reynolds, and I am here with a pre runoff election day interview with 2nd Congressional District candidate Anthony Daniels. Representative Daniels, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Well, thank you for having me, Terry. It's always good to see you.
Likewise, likewise. Look, I want to start off by talking about one thing that we have in common. I understand your birthday is October the 5th, 1982. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That makes you one day my senior.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I just realized that as I was going through getting to know all the candidates, I was like, I didn't realize that our birthdays were so close. So I'll make sure I continue to put some respect on your name since you're my senior.
All
All
right.
right, let's jump right in. I've got 5 questions for you, and then I've kind of got a Deuce's Wild question for you at the end. The first question that I want to ask you is really about your personal values and your motivation for running for this seat. We've heard you talk a lot about your roots in Bullitt County, but tell us what personal values or life experiences have really shaped your decision to take the leap and run for this seat. And how do you think that those experiences will influence how you approach this office if you're elected?
So, for me, I'm from Bullitt County, a small community called Midway, but a mighty community. Raised primarily by my grandparents, who in 1978, about 4 years before I was born, were sharecroppers at Seahorse Plantation, including my mother also was born and raised on the same plantation. And so I'm one generation removed from being a sharecropper myself. But the values that my grandparents instilled in me has really prepared me for public office and for life. I remember growing up and working outside with my grandmother when she would be in the garden, or working in the hayfield as a teenager, or walking down to the hog pen to feed the hogs, or even days when the rolling store would come around and on Fridays at 12 o'clock and barter eggs in exchange for groceries for my grandmother. And what I knew about credit was putting something on my grandmother's bill at the rolling store or at the local haberdashery. And so the values that I was raised on was basically growing up in the church at Calvary Baptist Church in the Hurstburg near Hurstburg. It's still Midway. But and so growing up in that community, growing up in the church, going to church every Sunday, but really having the community around you, whether you were a immediate family member or not, if someone saw you getting out of line, they would correct you and they would tell your mom, and so you'll get in trouble twice, or your grandmother. And so for me, being raised with my grandparents really taught me a whole lot about life, and it's prepared me for where I am today. So as I operate in politics currently, I don't see an obstacle as an obstacle. I see an obstacle as an opportunity. And so it also what's also instilled in me is hard work. And so my values are centered around my upbringing. It was a very tough upbringing. Being in poverty and not knowing you're in poverty, but also helping you understand what people are going through and the challenges that they face. And it gives you a better appreciation. It teaches you and shows you how to work toward helping the communities that are giving you so much.
I'm over here nodding my head, and I think that's so pertinent to this race in particular. I know a lot of emphasis has been put on Mobile and Montgomery because that is where a lot of the population is. But 13 out of the 11 of the 13 counties in this district are rural counties. Those same values that you just shared. So thank you for sharing your story and your upbringing. Let's switch over to how that experience has really shaped your perspective on policy. I know as a state legislator, you have been immersed in policy for the last decade and are deep in the trenches of it right now as the legislative session is coming to a close. But tell us about some of those key policies on the federal level that are most important to you, and how you would utilize this seat, if elected, to really help advance those policies forward.
So there are a number of policies at the federal level that I would focus on. But in 11 out of 13 counties, there's a commonality, and also the other two, the urban counties, Mobile and Montgomery included. Healthcare is a challenge. And so for me, because the state of Alabama failed to expand Medicaid, I would introduce legislation and working with our Congresswoman Terri Sewell, who's doing a phenomenal job, working with her in on legislation to allow the state of Alabama to start over from start over the beginning for the to accept the Affordable Care Act dollars at 100%, so that we can regain some support and financial support for many of the hospitals. Take for example Monroe County. Monroe County doesn't have a maternal care unit. And so, placing emphasis on communities like Monroe County, where a woman has to drive 114 miles one way and 90 miles the other way just to give birth to a child. And so, we understand that there are healthcare deserts all throughout this particular district. And so, healthcare would be a priority for me, and my number one priority. Number two would be job growth and opportunity. What we see is 5 military bases that are in proximity or directly within this congressional district. I've seen communities successfully use military bases in order to drive growth to the region. Some places even in the state of Alabama, look at Redstone Arsenal. Redstone Arsenal and the Department of Defense, and without Redstone Arsenal, Madison County would be Bullitt County. And so, leveraging military installations, but also supporting our higher education institutions. In order to be able to have a research park, you have to have an R1 research institution. And so I would make investments and support Alabama State University to ensure that they're moving in the direction that they need to and getting all the resources that they need to be able to become a R1 institution. And I think that from a leadership standpoint, they have the right leader that understands the dynamics and can support growth. And so I will support higher education institution. I will support Troy. I will support South Alabama with an emphasis on healthcare, expanding the number of individuals going into medical school. And so we got to make certain that we're focusing and developing a pipeline for jobs in healthcare, because if you expand Medicaid without providing the workforce in the pipeline, then you're in the same situation you're in today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk about bipartisanship and collaboration. I've been also following the Republican side of this race, and it's gotten very contentious to the point where it's a race to almost prove who's further to the right. And we see so much of that in this state and at the congressional level. So can you talk to us about how you would work across party lines to get things done, to make sure that the bills and issues that are critical to the day-to-day lives of the constituents of this district don't get caught up in partisan bottlenecks?
So, as you can see, Terry, right now, my entire political career has been working with the other side and having bipartisanship support on key pieces of legislation. For case in point, the bill to eliminate the income tax on overtime pay. I was able to get that passed with the House and Senate and signed into law, which is giving hourly workers more money in their pockets. I have a bill that's in committee tomorrow that I will step away from a campaign and go to the State House to introduce in the committee the bill that deals with childcare, which will give families up to $2,000 if they're in a 5-star facility, $2,000 from their employers in their checks or directly to a child care provider, so that it offsets the cost of childcare and make childcare more accessible and more affordable for families that want to re-enter the workforce. I've also passed legislation in a bipartisan manner to help to create the School of Cybersecurity and Engineering. I've supported all of our specialty schools within the state of Alabama. I just voted to support a school down in Demopolis last week, the Health Sciences School, where Senator Bobby Singleton and Representative A.J. McCampbell have been working so hard on, and Representative Curtis Travis as well. And so all of the pieces of legislation that I've introduced and I've supported, and last but not least, reducing the prescription drug costs for Alabamians. And so all of these pieces of legislation have been bipartisan pieces of legislation that have passed with more than 80% of the legislature. So I have experience of working across the aisle without compromising principle.
Now, I want to throw in, I'm going to take a point of personal privilege and put you on the spot. Will you tell us a little bit about this child care tax credit bill that's before the legislature right now, and what that could potentially mean for Alabama families?
Absolutely. And so this child care bill that I'll be introducing to that I'll be uh, seeking the votes on tomorrow and out of committee. Right now, it deals with families that uh, mothers that have left the workforce because they're having to make a choice between breaking even or staying at home with their children. And so many families have chosen to stay at home with their children because of lack of access and affordability of childcare. And so those families will be able to re-enter the workforce. Their employer will be able to get a tax credit in exchange for their employers actually putting money, reimbursing families up to $2,000 for their child care costs, or paying directly to a child care provider, or even building a child care facility on site. And so, what this will do will increase the participation rates, which increases tax revenue, tax revenue for local cities and counties, and even the state of Alabama, and putting families back to work, and but giving them the opportunity to have their children around curriculum. And so, that's what this piece of legislation will do for Alabama families here and long term.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that and for your work on this. This is, I know a lot of people have been behind pushing this and making it get to this point, and I thought it was pertinent when we talk about bipartisanship. I know, you guys have encountered some hurdles on the way, and so it's really close to getting across the finish line. I, for one, will be watching tomorrow after I vote to make sure that that's a success and moves forward. Listen, as a former congressional staffer, I think it's really important how people set their offices up once they're elected to office. And for folks who are watching this that aren't familiar with how this works, the congressional representative has an office in DC, but then they typically have a series of offices across the district to handle constituent needs. So can you talk with us a little bit about what strategies you would engage to listen to the concerns and voices of the elected officials in this district, the constituents of this district, and how you plan to make sure that the voices of the people in this district are what guide the decisions that you would make in DC?
Absolutely. And so for me, I will make certain that every county in the district has a voice. In fact, my goal would be to hire individuals that within those communities ask the county commission and or municipalities to donate office space for us to be able to operate or have a presence within their particular communities. I'll focus on breaking the office down by different areas, especially that deals directly with the federal government. Constituent services will be one of the more staffed than other areas, and within the constituent services, it'll have certain areas like veterans dealing with issues that deal with veterans, dealing with issues that deal with nonprofits and various education groups as well. And so we'll have constituents that deal with agriculture, whatever committees I'm afforded to be on. I want to make certain that I have individuals that are subject matter experts in those particular areas. But more importantly to me, Terry, I want to be able to have a town hall meeting in every county twice a year to be able to communicate with constituents and not the same place in that county twice, but having a different place within that county where we have the town hall meetings. I want to bring the faith communities and other community groups together to make certain that we're building partnerships. And I want to engage those individuals that are subject matter experts that may have been chosen to retire in Alabama, but seeking for them to come back and help us build out our offices throughout the second congressional district, but also partnering with Congresswoman Sewell because she is a senior member. She's a senior member, and making certain that we're working together and that we're not being duplicative on things that we can collaborate on, which gives us a more bang for our buck, but also makes us more effective and as a team.
Love to hear it. I think, what a lot of people don't always realize is that, yes, our congressional representatives are in DC passing legislation, but anytime a citizen has an issue with their Social Security or with the VA or with any federal agency, your congressional representative is who you call to help you with that. I know my father was sick several years ago, and we needed to get access to his health records in the Air Force from 30 years ago. And I was able to call Congresswoman Sewell's office, and they helped us get those records within a matter of a week. And we had been trying for months to do that. And so I think that it's critically important that the citizens of this district recognize how vast the responsibilities are of the congressional representatives. So thank you for sharing that.
And I
Go ahead.
just actually, I was just with a gentleman earlier today, and I actually ended up calling Congresswoman Sewell, state director, about an issue a gentleman was having with Medicare, where he hadn't had his call returned by Medicare, and so I wanted to make certain that we were able to deal with it. A lot of issues that I deal with in the state, sometimes they're federal issues, and getting them to the right person. So you're exactly right. These are things that are in the purview of the member of Congress, and they do a great job of making these things happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've got one more question, and I'm going to give you the floor to close us. But my last question is this. I want to know about your vision for this district. So let's say we're past tomorrow, we're past November, you're getting ready to go to represent this district in DC. Looking forward 10 years, what is your vision for the 2nd Congressional District? What improvements do you hope to make over the course of your tenure in this seat, should you be elected? Tell us what it is you want to accomplish for the people of the 2nd Congressional District.
Well, thank you for that question. The first thing for me is focusing on working with local, state, and county government, and leveraging my role as a member of Congress to create an opportunity for more universal cradle to pre-K. And in that process, making certain that we're leveraging things like Head Start, and not forgetting about Head Start, but leveraging from the birth to pre-K model, making certain that we are educating young people at the highest level possible, because we know that every dollar invested in early childhood saves us $7 in corrections. The other thing that I would do is leverage the military bases to be able to drive growth and opportunity into the region, which provides more job opportunities, which you'll start to see an increase in the growth and population in our communities, especially our rural communities, as well as our urban centers. The other thing that I would look at is from a healthcare standpoint. We have to do what needs to be done to keep the further closure to prevent the closure of our rural hospitals. We've seen a significant number of our rural hospital closures within the state of Alabama, and we have to make certain that we address that head on. For me, what I would like to see is a population increase in every community, every county within the state of Alabama, within the 2nd Congressional District. What we're finding is there's a significant population loss. And in order to be able to increase the population, you have to think differently. You have to be able to leverage investments in infrastructure, not just roads and bridges, but they're certainly a priority, but also broadband, bridging the digital divide, because there are a lot of tech jobs and opportunities across the country. And we saw during COVID, there's a lot of individuals moving into some of these communities, but these communities did not have the appropriate infrastructure to attract these individuals that wanted to come home and work, but wanted at the same time they needed to have the appropriate infrastructure. And so making certain that that's happening. That includes water, sewer, that includes roads and bridges, and that includes putting fiber down. I know the state of Alabama have done a lot around the infrastructure in general. And I just want to be a partner and really leveraging these communities to be able to drive growth, so that our local mayors, our small town mayors, will have a seat at the table. They will have an opportunity to leverage federal funding, and they will also have an opportunity to increase their tax base so that they can do more things in their communities. And so for me, it's all about growth. It's about opportunity. It's about education. It's about building a pipeline to where every child that's born into any community within the 2nd Congressional District will have a fighting chance at living the American dream right here within the state of Alabama and within the 2nd Congressional District.
That is a strong closing. That's a strong close. So listen, before we wrap up, without saying anything about your opponent, I would like to give you an opportunity to clear up, set the record straight on any misinformation or disinformation that you have heard about yourself, or this campaign, especially over the course of the last 6 weeks or so. Floor is yours.
And so Terry, it's hard for me to say something without. Now, I'm not necessarily going to mention my opponent by name, but an organization affiliated with my opponent that have put in, over $3 million, have chosen to, instead of asking me whether or not I have a home in Montgomery, they're spreading misinformation as if I don't. But I do have a home in Montgomery. All of my friends know that I have a home in Montgomery as well. In fact, the last 10 years, I spent 4 to 5 months in Montgomery. And so, for someone to spread rumors and mislead the public. The other thing is the public may not necessarily be aware that there is no residency requirement within the but you just have to live in the state of Alabama. And so there's a challenge for a lot of individuals to separate local rules versus federal rules, and sometimes they're different. But for me, I've been delivering in the state of Alabama. When I was first got into the Alabama legislature, my job was to listen and learn. I've been in the game for 10 years, and I've been successful throughout my tenure in the Alabama legislature, delivering services for communities all across the state of Alabama. And so, never once have I been questioned on my integrity. Never once have I've been questioned about what I've done to deliver for the district. Never once people misled or me being lied on in the public. It's not right. But I can sleep at night because my contributions, 77% of my contributions came from within the state of Alabama, and no one has given more to the state of Alabama that's left in this race than I have.
Thank you for that. Now, I want to close with this. Tell us about your family.
So my family is wonderful. My wife is such a jewel. My wife she's a dentist, and so we are small business owners. But I would tell you, she's a phenomenal mother. She I'm away a whole lot because of politics. As a minority leader, I have to travel the country and raise money to help get Democrats elected in the state house, as well as other positions I've helped Democrats get elected in. But man, my wife is she's such a jewel. I love her to death, and she does a job on top of being a professional. My wife takes care of our children like you've never seen before, and so she's my superhero, to be honest with you. And my children, they have so much of me and their mom in them. My son, I tell you, he mimics everything that I do, and so and people say they see it. My daughter, she's such a jewel. She's you just have to be proud of your children because they're five. My son just turned 6. He's 6 going on 15, and my daughter is 7. She'll be 8 on the 18th, in a few days. So she is such a delight, so smart, so loving and caring, and so my family is just great, and I'm just really fortunate to have such a strong and wonderful family that's very spiritually driven as well, and so I just enjoy it, and I tell you, sometimes it's tough when you're having to travel and do things, and you're getting in the throes of a campaign where your family is impacted by it. And when my children are able to look on the internet, they're able to read stories, they're able to see videos, and when these unfair attacks happen, they ask you questions, and so they're at that age. But Daddy takes the time to explain to them and talk to them about it, and so in hopes that if any of them should go into politics, that they're prepared for it. But they don't. I've taught them not to let anything get in your way. Any obstacle, you see it as an opportunity, and work hard. And if you get knocked down, get back up and keep going, just like Daddy's doing.
I love it. I love it. The reason I wanted to close with that is because, you and your family have made a tremendous sacrifice to offer yourselves as public servants for this district. And so I want to thank you for that sacrifice. I want to thank your wife and your children for the sacrifice that we know that they've made in order for you to offer yourself as a representative of this district. And I want to wish you the best of luck tomorrow. And I know today is a crazy day for you. Thank you for taking 30 minutes of your time to talk with me and the members of Deuce as well. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, Terry, and thank you to the members of Deuce as well. Appreciate you guys engaging in lively debate and just paying attention to what's going on in our state, and hopefully you too one day will decide that you want to offer your services to the public, because it's really truly a sacrifice. But as professional people, for me, I've been in public service my entire career. Started off as a teacher, and worked as the chairman of the NEA. And so I've been involved in this since I was 23 years old.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to let you get back to the campaign trail, and we will be talking to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.